At 3:06 local time, the first GBU-31 hit the complex outside Karaj at terminal velocity. Less than 2 seconds later, a second blast tore through the guidance wing. Then a third. Steel rails twisted. Roof panels lifted. Fire rolled through the assembly floor before the smoke had time to settle. This was not a random strike. This was a precision attack built around seconds, miles, and timing so tight that one mistake could have cost a $2.1 billion B-2 Spirit in the dark skies above Iran. At 41,800 feet, moving at roughly 468 knots, Phantom 21 was already committed. Below, missile production halls were about to disappear. Behind that attack was a chain of pressure. A hidden radar, a desperate Bavar-373 battery, an EA-18G Growler flooding the spectrum, and a Sayad-4 already hunting for a target. What happened next was fast, technical, and far more dangerous than anyone on the ground realized. Subscribe to the channel, because this is where we break the battle down second by second. At 3:03 local time, Phantom 21 was 43 minutes from weapons release, sliding east at 41,900 feet toward the missile complex near Karaj. Speed holding at 472 knots. Bomb bay sealed. Signature clean. From a distance, the B-2 Spirit was supposed to be a rumor on radar. Not an aircraft, not a track, a rumor. 82 miles ahead, Venom 11 was already listening. The EA-18G Growler was not searching for noise. It was searching for the wrong kind of silence. Then the silence broke. One pulse. UHF band. Chinese origin. The hit flashed across the ALQ-218 receiver like a knife across black glass. Wrong frequency, wrong wavelength, wrong problem. 41 miles north, Viper 1's F-22 Raptor caught the same emission on the AN/ALR-94 passive suite. No active radar, no radio call. Just antennas buried across the wings, spine and tail, slicing the signal into pieces and rebuilding it into a location. 3 bursts gave a bearing. 5 gave a grid. Error margin under 50 meters. That was enough. The system lighting up below was a YLC-8B, a radar built for one ugly purpose: finding aircraft like the B-2. Stealth shaping humiliates X-band. It bends the energy away. It cheats the math. UHF changes the math. At meter-long wavelengths, the smooth geometry of the Spirit stops looking invisible and starts looking measurable. On the shorter band sensors inside the strike package, Phantom 21 was still the size of a marble. On that UHF scope, it was beginning to bloom into something closer to a large bird holding steady at 41,900 feet and nearly Mach 0.72. Not many birds do that. The radar transmitted in short, disciplined sweeps. Roughly 3 seconds on, 2 seconds dark, just enough to paint. Not enough, they hoped, to die. But every burst gave the Americans another piece, another angle, another coordinate, and in the space of less than 20 seconds, a contact that was supposed to stay a ghost had started to take on weight, shape, direction. The bomber had not been engaged, yet. That was the problem. It had been seen. At 3:04 local time, the ghost fired back. Inside Venom 11, the WSO did not need a debate. He needed a solution. Fast. The YLC-8B was still pulsing in short, careful sweeps, about 2.8 seconds on, then dark, then back again. A disciplined rhythm. The kind of rhythm crews use when they know a harm missile could be somewhere in the sky already doing the math on their position. That math was now finished. Magnum. The AGM-88G came off the rail hard, already supersonic, already climbing. already pointed at the last place that radar had dared to exist. No warning shot, no hesitation. Just a weapon leaving the aircraft with one job and a memory precise enough to remember where the emitter had been seconds earlier. Here is what mattered. Older missiles could be cheated by silence. This one could not. The senior operator on the Iranian set made the smart move and cut transmission. Smart by maybe 25 seconds. Too late by everything that mattered. The harm did not need a live signal anymore. It had the address, latitude, bearing, altitude estimate, emission history. Enough to turn a radar vehicle into burning fragments before the crew could clear the cabin. The blast was sharp, low, violent. A secondary fire rolled through the equipment trailer. Antenna sections came down in pieces. The system built to expose stealth aircraft became scrap in less than a minute and a half. But this is where the story turns. In roughly 82 seconds of total transmission, the YLC-8B had already pushed out the one thing Iran needed: bearing, approximate altitude, approximate speed, a rough eastbound line, not clean targeting data, not perfect fire control quality, but enough to wake up something that had stayed silent for 4 days. And that something was worse. 14 kilometers south of Karaj, under camouflage netting and cold discipline, a Bavar-373 battery was about to receive its first useful cue in nearly a week. The Americans had destroyed the radar. They had not destroyed the warning. Watch what happens next, because the smaller explosion was over. The real danger was just powering on. At 3:06 local time, the main strike arrived. The first GBU-31 came straight through the Eastern Assembly Hall roof and detonated inside the structure instead of above it. That detail mattered. Blast pressure trapped under steel. Shockwave bouncing off support beams. Then the second impact hit the guidance integration wing. Then the third. In less than 4 seconds, the complex stopped looking like a factory and started looking like a collapsing machine. Ceiling rails for the 20-ton overhead cranes twisted off their mounts. Alignment jigs that took months to calibrate were thrown across the floor like scrap. Pressurized clean rooms where missile seekers were tuned to microscopic tolerances disappeared behind dust, insulation, and white fragments of shattered wall panels. A fourth bomb punched into the motor section. A fifth landed near the transfer bay where completed sections moved toward final mating. By the time the sixth shockwave rolled across the yard, the entire eastern side of the facility was already venting flame through holes that had not existed 10 seconds earlier. But those explosions were the effect. The cause was still in the sky. 44 seconds earlier, a fiber optic terminal inside a hidden Bavar-373 battery south of Karaj had lit up with the last transmission from the dead YLC-8B. Bearing, approximate altitude, approximate speed. Enough for a patient commander to make the one decision he had been saving for days. Trade the battery for the shot. He powered up the Mirage 4 radar at full output. Inside Phantom 21, the B-2 defensive management system caught the emission almost instantly. Fire control quality. Southern bearing. Tight enough to matter. A red diamond bloomed across the display. The warning tone followed a fraction later. The first radar had found the bomber. This one intended to kill it. Venom 11 reacted immediately, swinging the ALQ-249 across to an entirely different frequency family. New waveform, new problem, no time. The jammer needed about 6 seconds to catch the band and another 3 to flood it with useful noise. 9 seconds sounds short on a briefing slide. In the air, with a fire control radar building a track on a $2.1 billion B-2, it feels enormous. Still, Phantom 21 did not turn away. 7 minutes from release had become less than 1. The complex below was already marked. The clocks had started, and now the bomber had to fly straight into the narrowest part of the storm. At 3:06:32 local time, the most dangerous part of the mission was not the bomb run itself. It was the 12 seconds after the bay doors opened. With the doors sealed, Phantom 21 was nearly impossible to sort cleanly on X-band. A marble in black space, a shape too small to trust. But the moment those doors split open, the geometry changed. Hard edges, open cavities, flat surfaces catching energy and sending it back. For a few seconds, the B-2 stopped looking like a rumor and started looking like a real answer. That was the window the Sayad-4 needed. The missile was already airborne, climbing fast through 31,000 feet, still riding inertial guidance after the Mirage 4 had been hit. It did not need perfect updates anymore. It just needed to survive long enough to reach terminal range and wake up its own seeker. Inside Venom 11, the ALQ-249 was already waiting on the expected frequency. Loaded, aimed, silent. The problem with terminal guidance is brutal. Until the seeker turns on, there's nothing to jam. No signal, no lock, no warning you can fight directly. Just a missile moving at more than Mach 3 toward a patch of sky where a bomber has to stay almost perfectly steady. At 15 miles out, the bay doors were still open. At 12 miles, the seeker went hot. Venom 11 answered instantly. Noise slammed across the frequency before the missile could complete a clean scan. The processor inside the Sayad-4 tried to separate target from interference and found only fragments. A flash, a smear, a return that would not hold still long enough to become a track. For those 12 seconds, the B-2 was as exposed as it would ever be. And somehow, that was still not enough. At 3:07 local time, the missile was still flying. That was the last dangerous illusion in the sky. The Sayad-4 had survived the loss of its ground radar. It had survived on momentum, on inertial guidance, on 3 rough seconds of mid-course data smeared by jamming and already going stale. But surviving the launch phase is not the same thing as winning the intercept. By the time the seeker went active, Phantom 21 had already done the hardest part. The bomb bay doors had opened. 16 GBU-31s had dropped clean. The doors had closed again in under a second after the final release. The bright, ugly radar shape vanished. The barn door became a marble again. The ALQ-249 never gave the missile a clean picture. For roughly 9 seconds, the seeker fought through a wall of false returns. One contact bloomed, then slid. Another looked stable, then dissolved into noise. The processor kept trying to build a firing solution out of garbage. Heading, range, closure. Nothing stayed clean long, enough to trust. At more than Mach 3, that confusion is fatal. The missile crossed through the search basket, overshot the best intercept geometry, and kept flying into empty air. 8 more seconds. Then the self-destruct charge fired. A hard flash over the southern hills. No impact on the bomber. No second chance for the battery that had traded concealment for one shot. Phantom 21 banked west and began to leave the threat ring behind. Below, the real damage was only beginning to register. The first wave of GBU-31 impacts had already gutted the Eastern Assembly Hall. 20-ton crane bridges had come off their rails and dropped into the fixture line below. Precision alignment jigs used to seat missile airframes with tolerances measured in fractions of a millimeter were bent, flipped, or crushed under falling steel. Equipment that took months to calibrate had been turned into twisted metal, in less time than it takes to read a checklist. The guidance integration wing took 2 direct hits. Clean rooms collapsed inward. pressure-controlled chambers failed instantly. Calibration benches for seekers and control packages disappeared under concrete dust, shattered panels, and burning cable runs. Further south, the motor section absorbed additional strikes. Propellant handling bays, casing prep stations, and transfer lanes linking one production phase to the next were broken apart. Not just walls, not just roofs, the sequence itself, the workflow, the parts of the factory that let one finished missile become 10 more a few days later. That is the part that hurts. Buildings can be patched, steel can be replaced, a roof can be rebuilt. But specialized tooling, precision fixtures, environmental calibration spaces, those are different. Iran did not just lose square footage that night. It lost manufacturing rhythm, and in a missile complex that can be worse than losing the building. At 3:09 local time, the strike was already over, but the meaning of it was just starting to settle. On paper, this looked like a bombing mission. A B-2 Spirit went in, 16 GBU-31s came off the racks. A missile complex was torn apart. A Sayad-4 missed. End of story. It was not that simple. The part that stands out most to me is not the size of the explosions. Not even the fact that a $2.1 billion stealth bomber flew through one of the narrowest engagement windows imaginable and still completed the release. The real story is the chain. An F-22 Raptor listened without speaking. An EA-18G Growler caught the wrong signal first, then shifted bands under pressure, then fought both radar and seeker in different phases of the same engagement. A B-2 crew stayed on profile while the margin for error collapsed from minutes to seconds. An AGM-88G harm erased one radar. A second harm erased another. And in the middle of all of that, Phantom 21 still had to do the one thing it came there to do. That is what makes this strike feel so brutal. Every American system in the package was doing a different job, but all of them were solving the same problem. Personally, I do not think the decisive moment was the first blast inside the factory. I do not even think it was the destruction of the YLC-8B. For me, the decisive moment came when the Bavar-373 battery finally lit up and Phantom 21 did not flinch. That was the test, because once the Mirage 4 came online, the mission stopped being theoretical. It became a trade measured in seconds, a radar locking, a missile climbing, a jammer racing to fill the right frequency with enough noise, a bomber crew deciding to hold the line anyway. And that, more than anything, is why the result feels so one-sided by the end. Iran did find a window. It just found one that was too narrow, too late, and too heavily prepared for. So here's the question. What do you think was the true turning point in this entire sequence? Was it the AGM-88G hitting the YLC-8B before the picture could sharpen? Was it the Bavar-373 commander choosing to trade concealment for one shot? Or was it the moment the Sayad-4 seeker went active and found nothing but noise? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns written in this same style, subscribe and stay with the channel.